Wisdom. This particular video has a really interesting cover, so I've copied it and I've used it as an illustration. So I was trying to find out, well, okay, there's pictures of nuns and free sex. How does that connect to Jehovah's Witnesses? Well, I'll struggle to find the connection, but I'll conclude with making a comment about that. Meanwhile, let's just give you an example of this briefly.
To leave the organisation. To understand the influence of this community, it is essential to know its origins. Jehovah's Witnesses emerged in the late 19th century in the United States under the leadership of Charles Taze Russell, a man deeply interested in the interpretation of the scriptures. Russell established a Bible study group that later evolved into what we now know as Jehovah's Witnesses. From the beginning, their movement was characterized by a vision of Christianity distinct from traditional teachings. They rejected the Trinity, denied the existence of hell as a place of eternal torment, and proclaimed that the end of the world was near. One of the most striking aspects of Jehovah's Witnesses is their belief in the imminence of Armageddon. According to their doctrine, the current world is dominated by Satan, and only Jehovah's faithful followers will survive when the end times arrive. This conviction has shaped the lives of their members for decades.
So there it is. So there it is. So it's a well-made video, clearly identified, and it goes through the history. But you see, the title gives a suggestion that they've got information that is new. And so that sparks your interest. You think, oh, I want to find out about this. Ironically, you get to the 39th minute of the video and you discover that they're repeating everybody else's comments, really. It goes into the history of Jehovah's Witnesses a little bit. It mentions about the dangers of blood transfusions. I'll actually put a video in the corner that deals with that, really. And they mention about disfellowshipping. It's interesting, this video is 4 months old, and yet the term disfellowshipping was dropped by Jehovah's Witnesses in November 2024, and it was published in their magazine, their public magazine, in August 2024. So, and he later mentions judicial committees. They have been dropped. There are no judicial committees. There still are committees of elders who review people. One of the biggest things that this video focuses on, inferring that the members are trapped within the religion, and if they try and leave, they'll be ostracised and no one will speak to them again. And their ability to sort of get out into the real world, human society, would cause them such a trauma that they would have an inability of being able to cope. And that is partly true, because Jehovah's Witnesses it's not a closed community, but it's a community that's very close. So a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses will have all their main friends as Jehovah's Witnesses, which will mean that the connections to outside society would be less than perhaps the ordinary young person or child being brought up. So, and lots of ex-members have expressed the difficulty they've experienced in changing from the Society of Jehovah's Witnesses to a society where that's not involved anymore. So yes, there are problems adapting to a life of change. I've experienced that myself. I went through what is called disfellowshipping. They call it remove now, so it's a different, more gentler policy. He emphasised that Jehovah's Witnesses had very cruel in their disciplinary policy, but that policy has changed dramatically in the last couple of years. And always Jehovah's Witnesses were allowed to communicate with disfellowshipped family members. My son lived with me when I was a disfellowshipped member, and the communication was fine, but matters with regards to Bible study, etc., are not discussed with family members. And going on perhaps extended leisure trips would be not included. So at the time, my son would not have gone with me out to some kind of leisure event. So there was some limits in association, but it wasn't as traumatic as many describe it. But maybe I coped with the situation better than others. They say a number of things here, and I'm just going to very briefly. It says here the congregation pressures the individual to comply. There is recommended courses of action. For example, say you're thinking of drinking more alcohol because your friends are at school or college or something, then the advice is to be moderate. So yes, there are restrictive, but it's they say there's a recommendation not to go to higher education. Well, yes, there is, but there's freedom to do it. For example, I went to university, so yeah. It says here that you should get married quickly because otherwise you could have sex with each other, and you shouldn't have long. Jehovah's Witnesses suggest that young people who are courting shouldn't have long courtships. There's one couple I know, a young couple who got married recently in my local congregation, and they were courting for over 3 years. Well, I don't see this happening. I don't remember being pressurised to get married to my wife when she was a witness and I was. And yes, we are encouraged to marry each other in the faith. It does make life easier, you know. I have been also married to someone outside the faith. So that's just practical advice. If you're having problems in your marriage, for example, it's said that the wife is under pressure not to separate. I haven't seen that. A wife is free to separate. What she is not free to do, well, she's free to do it. She's free to get a legal divorce, but the Bible says there has to have sex has to have occurred by the offending party to sever the spiritual marriage. But the woman is free, or the man is free, to get a legal divorce. It's just that would affect their standing in the congregation, you see. And they would not be free to remarry. If someone wants to separate because of extreme abuse, then there's no congregation policy to stop them doing that at all. They're free to do that, and the legal process of legal separation is there. So it's summed up. It also mentioned a point about the child abuse methods. There's child abuse sections on this particular channel. It's summed up at the very end, which we were waiting to find out what their new ideas were, and they weren't really any new ones. The power of critical thinking. So it says that it inferred that Jehovah's Witnesses don't have the power of critical thinking. That's a little bit insulting, really. I've been a Jehovah's Witness for 40 years, and I personally believe I'm able to critically think, that I don't just get spoon-fed stuff, and that, you know, that I'm a kind of autonomon. But it's well presented, and it's got a very clever cover. The only thing is, the cover doesn't relate to the material inside at all. There's nothing about nuns and about Jehovah's Witnesses, and there's nothing about nuns in the material. So the front cover is very clever. It's got them lots of viewings. So, but it doesn't relate in one way. And where it says free sex, it doesn't relate in any way. In fact, I've mentioned that in one of my other videos as well about that particular cover. So I'm responding to that. Take care, everybody. And don't forget to keep your power of critical thinking.